This is Shivy from Legion School of Strength, and what I'm getting ready to do with Shay is show the progressions to the hollow hold. What I like to do from the first stage is start with a 30-second, 3 sets of 30 seconds, or 2 sets of 30 seconds, or even 1 set of 30 seconds, whatever your skill level. And when you move on to the next progression, you repeat the same thing, and then on to the third, with the master goal being doing 3 sets of 60-second hollow hold. This is the first step. What he's gonna do is he's gonna lift his knees up, he's gonna point his toes, and he's gonna reach for the far wall. And what he wants to do now from here is he wants to focus all of his energy and attention on this feeling here in the abs. But you don't wanna hold your breath. You wanna breathe behind this shield. And this is a good shield he's got going on here right now, and it's braced. He wants his shoulders to be packed. The reason why we want our shoulders packed and abs braced is because this skill translates to other movements. What we don't want is in the beginning stage of the hollow hold with his knees bent in a 90-degree angle, we don't want his knees to come too far forward. Maybe for some people, if that needs to happen, that's fine. But we ultimately want to be here. We want our knees pointed. Then we want, with his shoulders and his back, we want his back to come off the ground, not too hard, but we want him to more or less reach for the far wall. His back being flat, him reaching for the far wall is taking the energy that he is getting from the ground with his low back, and it's transferring from here throughout his whole body. So he's grounded. Once you do that, your abs are braced, your toes are pointed, and you are in the position. Go ahead and relax. Now, the second stage of the hollow hold, his legs will be straight. Now with this, what I like to tell my students is to focus on the point in your toes, because again, the leakage in energy, if your knees are bent, you're leaking energy. Because when you pull your kneecaps up, you squeeze your glutes, you go ahead and reach for the wall. We want him to reach, and we want him to pack his shoulders. Now, an unpacked shoulder is, think about if he was shrugging his shoulders. We don't want that. We want to reach for the wall. Remember, the movement doesn't change. This is just the progression. Now what we're doing is working with the rest of what we got left in the core. Remember, from here down doesn't matter. These don't matter. It's this. He packs his shoulders, he squeezes his glutes, he turns his quads on by pulling his kneecaps up by way of pointing his toes, and now he's got his abs braced as if I was gonna punch him in his stomach. The last stage of the hollow hold, and which is his legs straight, his arms straight, and he lifts, squeezes his glutes, lift them up a little bit higher, put your hands together. Here's a couple things we don't want. We don't want his hands or his arms to be too high and his head to be too low, or vice versa. We don't want the head too high and the arms too low. You want your biceps to be even with your ears, and if you do that, that means you have to lift your low back up, you have to point your toes, and your back is flat. Now, what we don't want is a banana boat, okay? That means that I could put my hand or arm underneath his back. This is no bueno. So what we want to do is, if you're a coach or you're working out with a friend or something like that, you want to tell your friend to crush my hand with your low back. Good cue to tell a person to do is to point their toes, but also squeeze their glutes. Because usually when you squeeze your glutes, your pelvis goes into a neutral tilt, and then you can have this back flat. If you can't hold this position without your low back becoming arched, and you've gone past the point where you're trying to have good form, where let's just say you start with your back flat and your back starts to arch, and you can't hold it like that because your mind starts to wander, it becomes too hard for you to do, then all you would do is you would go back to the previous stage and you would hold it there. You would start back at the same program, which is 30 seconds, 45 seconds, or 60 seconds. I like to tell my students that it's not about the time, it's about the mind to muscle connection. So you need to be focused on what you're doing and not let your mind wander, so that your body will adapt to whatever you're telling it to do, and it will adapt. So let's recap. The first stage, your knees are going to be bent. want to have your knees at 90. You're gonna reach, you're gonna pack your shoulders, you're gonna point your toes. You're gonna go to the next stage, your legs are straight. You're gonna point your toes. This will inherently turn your kneecaps on. So only thing you need to focus on is keeping the point. Then he's gonna sit up, he's gonna reach. And then in the last stage, you're gonna do the actual hollow hold. And remember, no arched back. You want your back to be flat, your toes pointed, arms together or hands together. And he has now met the standard for this skill, and that is the hollow hold.